The old national preceptor prophesied a calamity for the heir of Marquis Yongan. He said the boy wouldn't live past the age of 20. Pierced by 7 swords, the heir was brought back to life with only a single breath remaining. The preceptor then claimed he had narrowly escaped death's grip. He must marry his savior to repay the debt and settle his karma. Only then could he continue to live. The heir's family, carrying a jade pendant and a heavy dowry, entered the humble estate of a loyal 6th-rank official. My older sister stepped in front of the heir before I could. She took the jade pendant and stole my identity as his savior. My parents were overjoyed beyond measure. They showered my sister and the heir with praises. They completely ignored the fact that my sister knew nothing of medicine. I stood behind the screen, tracing the scar on my face. I did not rush out to clarify the truth. In my previous life, I got my wish and married Cui Bin. My sister was despised for her deception. She was driven out of the capital that very day. But in the 2nd month of my marriage, I was burned alive in my room by Cui Bin. He did it only to avenge his beloved sister. He treated his true savior with such heartless cruelty. Now that I have a second chance at life, I will let these 2 lovers be together. Let them live and die together. Without my interference. The engagement between Cui Bin and Feng Yueyao went smoothly. After they exchanged their birth horoscopes, Cui Bin asked casually, "I heard there is a second young lady in this house?" The smile on my mother's face instantly vanished. She curled her lip in disdain. A child who can't be presented in public is not worth mentioning. She claimed I would offend the noble guests, making things awkward. "Today is Yueyao's big day," she said. "Let's not mention others." She didn't mention that I was clearly the Feng family's biological daughter. Instead, my father turned me into an outsider with a single sentence. Cui Bin glanced toward the screen. "Since we are family, we should meet." Feng Yueyao sensed something was wrong. She quickly stood up and walked toward the screen. "Why is the maid from my sister's courtyard eavesdropping here?" Mother followed with a scold. "Why haven't you gone down for your punishment?" Feng Yueyao glared at me with ferocious eyes. She was on high alert, guarding against me rushing out to tell Cui Bin the truth. I lowered my head and left obediently. Feng Yueyao watched my back with suspicion. They hadn't expected me to be so cooperative. Before Feng Yueyao came out to claim the pendant, Mother, with a rare gentle tone, sent me food and drink, trying to keep me in my room. In my previous life, I indeed refused to cooperate. My parents had never favored me. They were rarely pleasant toward me. Sensing something was wrong, I had run behind the screen to eavesdrop. The Marquis of Yongan's estate was a prestigious family. To be associated with such a household was something my parents never dared to dream of. Feng Yueyao was at the perfect age for marriage. Mother had already been looking at scholars for her, but when the Marquis's house came to propose, without a second word, they pushed the beautiful Feng Yueyao forward. Since I was little, in my memories, my parents always favored Feng Yueyao. My personality was not likable. I wasn't as eloquent as Feng Yueyao, who knew how to win our parents' hearts. There is a scar on my face. Because of it, my parents refused to even look at me. But I got that scar when I was 6 years old, saving Feng Yueyao when she fell from a tree. Remembering the past is too painful. I will watch how far Feng Yueyao can go, without me standing in her way. Early the next morning after the engagement, the Marquis and his wife brought Cui Bin to the Feng residence. I was also summoned to the front hall. The Marquis sat in the main seat with a cold expression. My parents and Feng Yueyao knelt on the floor. Cui Bin stood beside Feng Yueyao, looking displeased, while she shrank her shoulders timidly. Just as I was about to kneel, the Marchioness pulled me up. "This must be Qinglan, right? This child looks very pleasing to my eyes." "Mother, I will not marry her," Cui Bin said firmly. "No matter what the preceptor says, I only recognize Feng Yueyao as my savior. I will only marry her as my wife." The Marquis slammed the table and stood up in anger. "The preceptor said it himself. Feng Yueyao's horoscope and yours are a toxic match. Only Qinglan's horoscope is karmically linked to yours." Cui Bin stiffened his neck in defiance. "The preceptor also said I wouldn't live past 20. Now that I'm alive." He changes his story. In my eyes, his words are not worth believing at all. "Father, please believe your son. Yueyao will be a good wife. Without her, I really wouldn't be able to carry on." I finally understood the situation. The Marquis and his wife took Feng Yueyao's birth chart to the preceptor to seek a blessing for a peaceful future, only to find out the signs were wrong. Feeling deceived, the Marquis came to the Feng house early to demand my birth chart from my parents. He immediately sent someone to ask the preceptor. The preceptor's interpretation led to my appearance in the hall. Cui Bin, refusing to give up, described the entire process of how Feng Yueyao saved him. In great detail, the Marquis began to waver. "Father, I cannot be wrong. You can't let me miss the person I truly care about just because of some horoscopes. If you insist that I marry Feng Qinglan, then I will compromise and take her as a side concubine." The preceptor only said to marry her. He didn't specify what rank she should hold. Making her a side concubine isn't insulting her. The Marquis continued to waver, his expression softening slightly. "Actually, Marquis, Feng Qinglan is not my biological daughter. Years ago, my wife had a difficult labor. The child died as soon as she was born. I couldn't bear to see my wife heartbroken. So I took in a child from outside. I made up a random birth date. For the official records, no wonder the child was born with a mark. She doesn't look like me at all. Oh, my poor biological daughter. My parents used all their life's wit in this moment. I listened blankly as they denied my identity. Once a lie begins, it's not hard to keep it going. The two of them played their parts perfectly, describing me as a lazy, useless wild girl. Someone like me was naturally not qualified to be the heir's wife. Madam, about that jade pendant. I gave both my daughters one. But Qinglan's pendant was shattered long ago. They even denied the surname I left with the heir. Feng Yueyao regained her composure. I remember the day I saved the heir. Sister Qinglan and mother were at the temple, worshipping for 3 days. She never left. Everyone was denying my identity, but they all knew in their hearts that I was the one who saved Cui Bin. I knew my parents favored Feng Yueyao, but I didn't expect their favoritism to be so bottomless, and Cui Bin might have wondered who truly saved him. But seeing the difference in beauty between me and Feng Yueyao, he decisively chose to believe Feng Yueyao's words. He convinced himself that Feng Yueyao was his savior. I did accompany her to the temple to worship, but she felt my appearance would offend the Buddha. So she locked me in the room. She knew I left the temple that night. Yet she intentionally said I was there. Feng Yueyao knows nothing about medicine. Cui Bin's injuries were severe and required stitching. I was the one who risked everything to save him. Because he held my hand and said he would marry me and love only me for the rest of his life. I, who lacked affection, was deeply moved. No one had ever said they would love me forever. I never expected him to go back on his word. I was stubborn back then, thinking that if he knew the truth, he would care for me. I didn't realize Cui Bin was not a good man. Fortunately, I have a chance to do it all over again. I will not be foolish this time. Isn't the Marquis going to ask me? I never said I saved the heir. I looked up to meet the Marquis' scrutiny. My hand is injured, even moving it is difficult. I raised my arm and rolled up my sleeve, showing my bandaged right hand. Cui Bin's expression shifted, giving me an approving look. I thought to myself, if only you had been this honest in your previous life. The Marquis stared intently at me and Feng Yueyao. His sharp gaze flickered between the two of us. Feng Yueyao's legs went weak, and she leaned against Cui Bin. I remained indifferent and didn't meet his gaze, letting the Marquis draw his own conclusions. The Marquis was experienced. He noticed something was amiss. But no matter how he questioned me, I denied everything. Feng Yueyao gritted her teeth and stood her ground. Marquis, I already have someone in my heart. I thought he was just a simple hunter. Since my parents are unhappy, and now that I know I'm not the Feng family's daughter, it's time to settle this. I kowtowed 3 times to my parents. Qinglan thanks you for raising me. Knowing my true identity, I can no longer stay in this house. I scrambled up and prepared to leave. Cui Bin stopped me. Nonsense. The one you care about is me. There is no such thing as a hunter, Feng Qinglan. I can take you as a concubine. Since you crave wealth and status, I will grant your wish. I raised my hand and slapped Cui Bin across the face. Heir, how can you make up such lies and insult my virtue? Today is the first time I have ever seen you. Why would I care for you? I squeezed out a couple of tears, stamped my foot, and before anyone could react, I ran out like a flash. I escaped the Feng residence and hid in the corner of an alley. I looked up at the sky and let out a silent sigh of relief. In my previous life, I had caused a scene in front of everyone. Even though the Marquis trusted me, Cui Bin firmly denied it. Even though I recounted the entire rescue, filling in all the details Cui Bin had forgotten. And even though Feng Yueyao had nothing to say, except to stammer that she had forgotten, Cui Bin only chose to trust Feng Yueyao and my parents. They saw that Cui Bin didn't like me at all. They helped Feng Yueyao deceive everyone. Just like they were doing now. They denied I was the Feng family's daughter, intentionally injured my hand, and drove me out of the house. Now, I've done it all myself. I will show them that a fake can never become real. News of the wedding between Cui Bin and Feng Yueyao spread. It became the talk of the capital. Although Feng Yueyao was the daughter of an official, her father's rank was negligible compared to the Marquis. Cui Bin was handsome, and countless noble ladies in the city admired him. Many had much better backgrounds than Feng Yueyao. While everyone was curious, I hired people to spread the story far and wide of how Feng Yueyao saved the dying Cui Bin. People love a good spectacle. The story of the rescue grew more and more exaggerated. It turned Feng Yueyao into a legendary miracle doctor. Feng Yueyao, vain of her beauty, loved to hear people's praises, but she had nothing going for her besides her face. The overwhelming praise made her head spin. Immersed in it, she truly began to believe she was a miracle doctor. Cui Bin thought this was a good thing. Now the entire capital, from the imperial family to commoners, was talking about it. There was no way to stop it. Feng Yueyao was invited every day to banquets of the nobility. Everyone was curious to see this legendary doctor. People fear illness and death. So a doctor who can bring back the dead is always praised. Feng Yueyao sat in a high position. A casual word from her could make things difficult for those who once looked down on her. With a simple smile, she could receive incredibly valuable gifts. When I heard that Feng Yueyao returned home with precious corals, I finally left the capital, satisfied. To simply punish her would be too easy. To make her fall hard, she must first be raised high. A miracle doctor cannot just have a title, she must have the actual skill to save people. I didn't go far from the capital. I asked around at nearby temples, waiting for the drama in the capital to unfold. Cui Ben and Feng Yueyao's wedding was grand. I could hear the music even on the hills outside the city. Celebrate while you can. This is the last of the fortune for Feng Yueyao and Cui Ben. The night after their wedding, I encountered a severely injured man in the woods. I had met Cui Ben here once before. His blood had pooled on the ground, with an arrow in his chest and only one breath left. He had struggled to grab my hand and beg me to save him. This man was even more handsome than Cui Ben. He also reached out to me for help. I wouldn't fall in the same place twice. I turned to walk away. After 10 steps, my heart softened inexplicably. My master taught me medicine, taught me to be compassionate, and to have the heart of a healer. He pitied me for not having my parents' love, and so he made an exception to take me as his disciple. I promised him I would carry on his medical knowledge to save the dying and help the injured. The man was covered in blood. His injuries were very serious. This meant trouble. After walking past him, I went back to save him, but I don't regret it. I hate Cui Ben for his betrayal, and I hate myself for trying to force a connection that wasn't there. But I've never hated myself for saving a life. I hesitated for a moment, but still walked back to where the man was lying. This man's injuries were worse than Cui Ben's. I might end up working for nothing, but I really couldn't just stand by. I gave the man simple emergency treatment, using cloth to bind the critical areas. To prevent excessive bleeding, I dragged him to a nearby cave. It was the same cave where I had saved Cui Ben. I thought about it, and then tied a cloth over the man's eyes, so he wouldn't see my face. The tools I had used last time were still there. I had no anesthetic, and as I used a knife to treat his wounds, the man woke up from the pain several times before passing out again. It wasn't until dawn that I finally removed all the hidden weapons from his flesh. After stitching him up, I was exhausted. If it weren't for your good looks, I wouldn't have saved you. I attributed my soft heart to his handsome face. I tucked him in tightly. When I returned from the temple with some food, the cave was empty. It was fine that he left, but he had taken all my medical tools with him. I angrily kicked the straw on the ground. I shouted out in frustration. Well, if he could leave, it meant he survived. Something under my foot tripped me up. I picked it up and saw it was a jade pendant of decent quality. It had no markings, so I couldn't tell its origin. Last time I saved someone, I accidentally lost my pendant. This time, I saved someone and accidentally picked one up. I kept it as payment. For several days, I followed the news in the capital, but I didn't hear the good news I was expecting. Feng Yueyao was still prominently making appearances. Cui Ben was still showering her with affection. I clearly remember that at this time in my previous life, a noble in the capital was seriously injured, just as severely as Cui Ben. With only one breath left, the imperial doctors were at their wits' end. The old national preceptor offered a suggestion. The one who saved the heir is the only hope. An imperial decree was issued for me to save him, but my hand had been injured by my parents, so I couldn't hold a knife. When I said I needed to perform surgery, the imperial doctors called me crazy and nonsensical. Because of that incident, the Marquis stopped protecting me. They realized I wasn't the one who saved the heir. They tried to find Feng Yueyao, but unfortunately, the day after I cleared things up, she met with an accident. Cui Ben vented all his hatred on me. The Marquis ignored Cui Ben's torture of me, letting me suffer. I had intentionally praised Feng Yueyao's medical skills to the skies, working hard to build her reputation. All for this day. Why was no noble injured? Why had no one exposed Feng Yueyao's identity? Is it possible that after being reborn, things change based on my choices? I disguised myself and snuck into the princess's banquet. Feng Yueyao was one of the invited honored guests. Today, the peonies in the princess's manor were in full bloom. Layers of gauze lanterns hung under the corridors. They swayed gently with the wind. The courtyard was filled with elegant guests, but also hidden dangers. I had changed into a plain gray dress. I wore only a single wooden hairpin. I used a light powder to partially cover the scar on my face. Blending in among the commoners, no one spared me a second glance. I was here for one thing, to see Feng Yueyao shatter the halo she had built for herself, inch by inch, on the ground. I followed the crowd toward the main seats. I kept an eye on the noble ladies in the crowd, observing the expressions of the young misses. Miss Li was holding her teacup, her fingertips tightening slightly. Clearly, she was waiting for Feng Yueyao to make a fool of herself. Several princesses were whispering and laughing together. They kept glancing toward Feng Yueyao's seat, with looks of mockery and curiosity. I sneered in my heart. Feng Yueyao thought that with just her face and a few lies, she could secure her position as the heir's wife. Little did she know the whole city was waiting to see how she would fail. Before I could reach the person I was looking for, my arm was suddenly grabbed by a hand with immense strength. Before I could struggle, I was dragged into the shadows behind a rockery. My nose hit the hard stone wall. A dull pain hit me, just as I was about to scream. A warm palm clamped tightly over my mouth. He smelled faintly of ambergris and carried a hint of subtle anxiety. Qinglan, that familiar voice reached my ears. My whole body froze. My blood seemed to solidify in an instant. Was it Cui Bin? Had my plan been discovered? Had he already found out that I was the one spreading those rumors, making Feng Yueyao a celebrated miracle doctor? I felt uneasy. My fingertips turned white from tension. I kept my head down, afraid to let him see the hatred and absurdity in my eyes. In my previous life, he had done exactly this, using a gentle tone to lure me into a cage, then pushing me into an abyss with the most cruel methods. Now, the more gentle his voice sounded, the deeper the dread grew in my heart. Outside the rockery, I could hear the footsteps of the maids. The light from the lanterns filtered through the cracks onto the ground, flickering, much like my current swirling emotions. I remembered a twilight like this in my previous life. He had held my hand just as gently, saying that once he found out the truth, he would marry me with a grand procession. But then he turned around and dealt me a cruel blow. Those sweet words were still echoing in my ears, but the memory was too painful to revisit. Qinglan, I've been looking for you for a long time. Where have you been these 3 months? Cui Bin's voice was very soft, gentle like a spring breeze. In my previous life, I only heard that tone during the first month of our marriage. He had deceived me with his feelings, and when I cared about him the most, he told me it was all a lie. He plunged me into despair. Back then, I foolishly thought he was being deceived by Feng Yueyao. I thought if I told him the truth, he would come back to me. Thinking back, it was just my own wishful thinking. I trembled all over and shrank back, using all my strength to reject his approach. My shoulder hit the rough stone wall, causing sharp pain. But I didn't even notice. I was afraid that if I spoke, I wouldn't be able to stop myself from screaming about the agony of my previous life. I wouldn't be able to resist rushing forward to tear off his hypocritical mask. In the cracks of the rockery, there were a few small fern-like plants. They swayed as I moved against them. The dewdrops from the leaves fell onto the back of my hand. Icy cold to the bone, it made me feel more awake. I am no longer the Feng Qinglan who craved family and love in her previous life. In this life, I only want them to pay the price. Qinglan, are you doing well? Did you suffer while you were away? Cui Bin took a step forward, trying to touch my cheek. I suddenly turned my head to dodge, leaving his hand frozen in midair. A flicker of imperceptible displeasure flashed in his eyes, but it was quickly covered by a gentle facade once more. No matter what Cui Bin said, I kept my lips tightly sealed. My lips turned pale from my biting, and I didn't even notice the faint trace of blood. I only wanted to leave this place as quickly as possible, to watch him and Feng Yueyao suffer the consequences of their actions, and never have anything to do with him again. Suddenly, the sound of jingling jade ornaments approached. Feng Yueyao came rushing over, lifting her skirts. The golden peonies embroidered on her dress shimmered with a cold light in the shadows. On her exquisitely made-up face, there were traces of urgency and impatience. She swept a glance over me, then looked at Cui Bin. Time is running out. Have you convinced her yet? The princess is already sending people to hurry us. If we delay any longer, people will start to notice. Seeing Feng Yueyao again after 3 months, she wasn't as glorious as I had expected. Her eyes were bloodshot, with heavy dark circles underneath. Clearly, she had been having sleepless nights lately. Although her face was covered in thick powder, it couldn't hide the exhaustion in her eyes. The corners of her mouth drooped instinctively, adding a touch of bitterness to her look. I could tell at a glance that her emotions were unstable. Her internal fire was raging, and stagnant energy was gnawing in her heart. Her health had long been compromised at the root. Where was the grace of the once famed beauty of Jincheng? Now, she might appear as the high and mighty heir's wife, but in reality, she was already on the edge of a precipice. Those noble ladies and misses only flattered her on the surface. Behind her back, they had already seen through her lack of substance. They were just waiting for the right moment to pull her down from her pedestal. In these 3 months, I had already sent people to secretly collect evidence of her ignorance of medicine, her mistreatment of servants, and her bullying behavior using her status. I was just waiting for today to expose it all. Feng Yueyao forced a stiff smile, stepping forward to grab my hand with fake affection. Her fingertips were icy cold, but her grip was terrifyingly strong. Sister, you've always liked me the most, haven't you? You used to say that we sisters would always live together, sharing blessings. and facing hardships together. So, why don't you come to the heir's manor? I promise I won't let anyone bully you. Her tone was full of reluctance, and the smile on her face almost crumbled. Clearly, she was being forced by Cui Bin to lower her status and try to win me over. I looked on coldly. Cui Bin knew full well in his heart, they must have encountered a problem they couldn't solve. Which is why they thought of finding me, the person they had discarded like trash. A few days ago, the wife of a high official had a difficult labor. The imperial physicians were helpless. The family sought out Feng Yueyao due to her reputation. She had to go, but the situation turned critical. If the official's wife hadn't been incredibly lucky, she would have died right then. This incident was suppressed, but it caused fear among the noble circles. No one dared to seek her medical help easily anymore. Her reputation as a miracle doctor was already a hollow shell. Cui Bin nodded slightly, speaking with a tone of patronizing charity. Though it's a concubine's position, I won't treat you poorly. I will treat you sisters equally. Your food, clothing, and expenses in the manor will never be lacking. As Feng Yueyao heard Cui Bin's words, she held my hand, even tighter, her nails almost digging into my flesh. I intentionally let out a small cry of pain, my eyes turning slightly red. Sister, you're hurting me. I am not. Miss Feng. This commoner girl doesn't dare approach the heir, nor dare to step a single foot into the Marquis's manor. I pulled my hand back and took a step away, lowering my head obediently. My voice was full of humility, but my eyes were filled with ice. Cui Bin frowned deeply, pushed Feng Yueyao aside, and stepped forward to take my hand. He carefully checked the red marks on my wrist. His tone turned cold instantly, as he scolded, Feng Yueyao, didn't I say to be generous and kind? Do you still want to live a peaceful life? In this current situation, no one but her can help you. Feng Yueyao's face turned pale. She bit her lip in dissatisfaction but suppressed her anger. However, the look she gave me became even more venomous. She knew Cui Bin was telling the truth. Now, her reputation as a miracle doctor was crumbling. No one was seeking her for treatment, and even some noble families she had previously slighted were starting to talk, threatening to expose her true colors. Is it useful for me to be generous? She won't necessarily agree to help me. She has hated me since we were young. She's always worked against me, competing for our parents' love. How could she possibly be willing to help me now? I whispered a reminder, Miss Feng. You just said I was the person you liked most. How could you forget that in a heartbeat? The way Feng Yueyao looked at me, it was as if she wanted to rush forward and wound me. Only because Cui Bin was there did she suppress it, her chest heaving violently. She was clearly infuriated by me. Cui Bin took a deep breath and spoke to me, his voice carrying a hint of a plea. Qinglan, I've heard that you know a bit of medicine. Your sister is currently pregnant. It's inconvenient for her to treat patients while she's unwell. Can you stand in for her? No matter what you want, gold, silver, jewelry, land, or estates, I can satisfy you. I hesitated for a moment, biting my lip hard, but I didn't let the cheers in my heart escape my lips. I thought Feng Yueyao could hold out for another 10 days. It seems she's already under heavy suspicion. She only forced Cui Bin to find me because she couldn't take it anymore. No wonder in these past 2 weeks she only attended this one banquet hosted by the princess. She must have had no choice but to come. This is basically a hongmen banquet targeted at her. Yet she foolishly thought she was still the miracle doctor heir's wife whom everyone admired. I remained calm, acting humble and timid. Miss Feng's medical skills are matchless. She can bring people back from the brink of death. My meager knowledge isn't fit for public display. I simply cannot replace her. After a pause, I added another sentence, each word hitting Cui Bin's sore spot. Besides, since Miss Feng is pregnant, if she can't treat patients, she should just say so. Would anyone in the world dare to trouble the heir's wife? Being pregnant doesn't mean she can't move. Why can't she treat people? Why must the heir trouble me so? A woman with no one to rely on? I sneered in my heart. Cui Bin already knew for certain that Feng Yueyao wasn't his actual savior. Yet he was still happy to play the fool. He wanted to find me, the true savior, to be her ghostwriter, just to keep this fake, Feng Yueyao, by his side. What he cared about was never the debt of gratitude for his life. It was always just Feng Yueyao's beautiful face, and that ridiculous obsession in his own heart. Trying to use me while treating me like a fool. Do you really think I, Feng Qinglan, am still that naive child from my previous life who could be manipulated at will? Cui Bin, you've gone too far. I looked up at him, my eyes calm and without a ripple, yet carrying an unquestionable weight. Since you like playing the fool, I'll accompany you. This girl has been dull since childhood. I only have a superficial understanding of medicine. I have never saved anyone. How does the heir dare to let me replace Sister Feng? I emphasized the word never, staring straight at Cui Bin. He values his reputation above all else. My words hit home, and his face instantly turned red with shame up to his ears. For a moment, he was speechless. Feng Yueyao had long since lost her patience. She didn't want to beat around the bush with me anymore. She revealed her true colors, her tone incredibly fierce. Stop playing dumb. There are no outsiders here. Even if you are the heir savior, so what? With your looks, even becoming a concubine is a step up for you. After all, the heir only loves me, not you. She smugly stroked her slightly bulging belly, her eyes full of boasting, as if showing off a cheap toy that was about to disappear. In my previous life, this is how she used a false identity and her looks to steal everything from me. It's the same in this life. Yet she doesn't know that the happiness she's boasting about is already nothing but a mirage, ready to shatter at a touch. I watched Chuibin in silence. He remained silent as well, instinctively avoiding my gaze, not daring to look me in the eye. His evasion already said everything. Feng Qinglan, you better be sensible. I don't necessarily need you, but when you have no value left to use, your only path will be death. Feng Yueyao's gaze was sinister, as she directly threatened me. And why did you come to the princess's manor today? What is your purpose? Are you trying to expose me? Ben, I don't think we need her cooperation. Let's just get rid of her once and for all. At worst, I'll never touch medicine again. I can always find a way to muddle through. Feng Yueyao was getting desperate, behaving like someone with nothing to lose. Chuibin immediately shook his head, holding her back in disagreement. Yao Yao, you go back first. I will persuade her. Your health is precious right now. You mustn't get upset. Feng Yueyao was unwilling. She wanted to keep speaking, but a maid's soft voice came from outside. Lady Heir, the princess has sent someone to invite you. If you don't go now, it would be a breach of etiquette. She had no choice but to glare at me fiercely. She leaned in to whisper to Chuibin, Ben, don't you dare go soft on her. Think of our child. This is your first child. The future heir of the Marquis' manor. Chuibin looked at Feng Yueyao tenderly, a flash of genuine emotion in his eyes. Compared to his superficiality toward me, the tenderness now was very real, and it made my eyes ache with bitterness. The two of them huddled together in front of me, whispering intimately, as if I were an irrelevant outsider. Feng Yueyao tilted her head and gave me a smug glance, then turned and left, lifting her skirts. Her back was still haughty, but she couldn't hide a hint of panic. After Feng Yueyao left, only Chuibin and I were left, in the shadows behind the rockery. He lowered his head, and his tone suddenly changed, filled with guilt and a bit of fake remorse. Qinglan, I have wronged you. I know you've come back. I know you were the one who saved me on the mountain back then. But Yao Yao is carrying my child. I can't just ignore her for the sake of her being your sister. Could you please help her? I laughed silently, my laughter low and cold, echoing behind the silent rockery. These two really are a perfect match, acting in harmony, completely selfish. They wanted to control the rest of my life with just a few soft words, treating me as a tool to save their own lives. In the previous life, he had ignored everything and chosen Feng Yueyao, trampling me into the ground, letting me be cursed by the whole world. In this life, he was eager to make up for those regrets by protecting Feng Yueyao early on, even willing to let me become a concubine. You've been married for a month, but Yao Yao's child is already over 2 months old. This level of devotion really is impressive. I looked up at Chuibin with a calm gaze, and word by word, I clearly stated the fact that made him uneasy. The heir and his wife have been married for 1 month, but the child is already over 2 months old. This devotion of yours is truly touching. Chuibin's face instantly turned deathly pale. His eyes darted around, but he didn't deny my words, clearly having his secret exposed. Back then, because of his so-called devotion, he had taken Feng Yueyao, and Feng Yueyao, to secure her position as the heir's wife, had gotten pregnant early for fear that Chuibin would change his mind. Both were plotting for their own gain, hitting it off perfectly. Earlier, when Feng Yueyao touched me, I had discovered this disgusting fact from her subtle pulse and posture. I just hadn't pointed it out until now. Saying it now, and seeing Chuibin's wretched state, I felt incredibly satisfied. Qinglan, I can agree to anything you want, even the position of an equal wife. As long as you help Yao Yao, anything is fine. Chuibin grew anxious, quickly setting his conditions, his tone full of urgency. I chuckled coldly, making no effort to hide the truth of my rebirth. The hatred in my eyes was clearly visible. I said each word slowly. You experience the feeling of being burned by fire, and then I'll agree to your request. That fire in my previous life had burned me miserably. That bone-piercing pain I will never forget for as long as I live. Now, I'm giving that pain back to him. No, back to them. Chuibin shuddered all over, terror and cowardice flashing in his eyes. He instinctively took a step back, not daring to respond to my words. He dared to commit ruthless acts, but he didn't dare to endure a shred of pain. Such cowardice and selfishness, truly laughable. Just then, a female official from the princess's manor, holding a whisk, slowly walked over. Heir, the princess invites you back to the banquet. It is time for the meal to begin. A flash of panic crossed Chuibin's face. He hadn't noticed when the official had arrived, nor did he know how much she had heard. But he didn't dare do anything to an official of the princess's manor. He could only force himself to stay calm. Qinglan, don't act on impulse. Think carefully about what you really want. I'll wait for you at the banquet. He finished speaking softly, hurriedly straightened his clothes, and quickly followed the official away. His back actually had a bit of a fleeing quality to it. I lingered behind the rockery for a moment, dusted off my clothes, and then slowly walked toward the front courtyard. I couldn't miss this show today. The princess's banquet was grand beyond measure. with a gathering of many guests, almost all the prominent families and nobles in the capital were there. Below the terrace, the peonies were in full bloom, red as fire and pink as clouds. But they couldn't compare to the complexity of the hearts at the banquet. I knew there were young ladies like Miss Lee, who didn't get along with Feng Yueyao, but I didn't expect that more than a dozen ladies and misses who were at odds with her would all be at the banquet. Everyone had a smile on their face, but calculation was hidden in their eyes. Tea and snacks were served one by one, neatly placed by the maids with soft movements. The princess sat in the main seat, raising her hand to signal everyone to taste. Today the peonies are in full bloom. No need for everyone to be formal. Please enjoy yourselves. As soon as Feng Yueyao sat down, she picked up a piece of osmanthus barley cake and took a small bite. Her posture was elegant, but she couldn't hide the unease in her eyes. She kept glancing around from the corners of her eyes, afraid that someone would suddenly make a move. Her guilty behavior was seen by everyone, becoming a complete laughingstock. Just then, the princess suddenly looked at a lady beside her, speaking with a bit of an apology. I've been negligent. I just learned that Madame Lu is pregnant. This barley cake is cold in nature. Pregnant women cannot eat it. It might cause a miscarriage. Feng Yueyao's face changed instantly. She abruptly spat out the cake from her mouth, hurriedly wiping her mouth with a handkerchief. Her movements were crude, completely lacking her usual dignity. She even reached into her throat, disregarding her image, trying to spit out everything she had eaten, afraid it would harm the child in her belly. This scene was seen clearly by the princess. The princess was instantly displeased, her brow slightly furrowed, and her tone carried a hint of a reprimand. Does the heir's wife find my snacks unpalatable? The heir really does spoil his wife. He can't even bear to make her learn the rules. To be so rude at a royal banquet, what would people think if word got out? This was a public scolding of Feng Yueyao for her lack of manners. It didn't give the Marquis's manner any face at all. Cui Bin looked embarrassed. He stood aside, wanting to speak up to defend her, but he couldn't find a reason. He could only clench his fists tightly, his face turning from red to white. I wasn't surprised at all, and I lightly curled my lips. Feng Yueyao was, after all, the daughter of a minor official. She hadn't seen much of the world. She had been spoiled since childhood, becoming arrogant and willful, not understanding at all how to prioritize the big picture. Her mind was entirely focused on protecting her child and keeping the wealth and status in front of her. In the past, she hadn't met anyone more noble than her, and with Cui Bin's protection, she hadn't caused any major trouble. But today was different. The princess was clearly targeting her on purpose, and naturally, she couldn't handle it. Before Cui Bin could stop her, Feng Yueyao had already started explaining in a panic. Princess, please forgive me. This servant just remembered that she is also pregnant and cannot have these cold items. It wasn't that I found the princess's snacks unpalatable. I hope the princess will forgive me. Her tone was urgent and carried a bit of fawning, yet it made her appear even more guilty. Miss Lee, the daughter of the prime minister, immediately spoke up, her tone carrying a hint of mockery. Everyone says the heir's wife's medical skills are miraculous. Yet how could she only realize that she couldn't eat those snacks? After the princess's reminder, could it be that the miraculous skills the world talks about are all fake? That one sentence instantly set off the atmosphere at the banquet. Everyone's eyes were focused on Feng Yueyao. Some with inquiry, some with ridicule, and some with schadenfreude. Feng Yueyao's face flushed a deep red. She wanted to open her mouth and shout back, but she was sternly stopped by Cui Bin's gaze. Her gaze darted around in panic, and she instantly spotted me standing in the corner watching the scene. A flash of sinister cruelty crossed her eyes. She forced a few smiles on her face. Who said my medical skills are fake? Does anyone here know medicine? Do you dare to compete with me? Someone at the banquet immediately stood up. It was a lady dressed in dignified clothes. She curtsied slightly. This servant's husband serves in the Imperial Hospital. I have studied medicine with him for a few years, so I know a thing or two. I would boldly like to learn a thing or two from the heir's wife. This Madam Physician was the same person who had testified for me in my previous life. She was upright and honest, with excellent medical skills, and couldn't stand charlatans. Her stepping forward today was clearly because she had long been sick of Feng Yueyao. Feng Yueyao panicked in her heart. She knew nothing of medicine. How could she dare to compete with anyone? She immediately pointed at me as if grabbing a lifeline. My sister has studied medicine with me for several years. She knows a bit of it as well. She can compete with the madam on my behalf. Everyone's gaze instantly landed on me in unison, carrying a bit of curiosity and doubt. Feng Yueyao stepped forward, forcefully took my hand, and dragged me to the center of the banquet. She whispered in my ear, her voice cold and fierce. Compete well. If you win, I'll grant you a wish. If I'm not doing well, no one will have a good life. After saying that, she pushed me forward hard, while she herself retreated behind Cui Bin, looking as if she had the victory in her hands. The princess did not stop her. Instead, she raised her hand with interest to signal. In that case, let it begin. I would also like to see just how good the medical skills of the disciple taught by the heir's wife are. In Feng Yueyao's memory, I was that timid and submissive second Miss Feng who dared not talk back even when beaten or scolded, because I wasn't as good as the head maid by her side. She was used to ordering me around as she pleased. From childhood to adulthood, she made me take the blame for everything. I had never refused her before. The only time I defied her was over the marriage to Chui Bin. She was certain that I would still be as well-behaved and obedient as before, and would not dare to betray her. She didn't know that I was no longer that soft target for her to manipulate. Living this life again, what I wanted was never a temporary victory, but to make them pay a painful price. The Madam Physician spoke slowly, and the first question she posed was about the closure and suturing of a wound. It was precisely the core memory from when I saved Chui Bin, and it was a secret that Feng Yueyao could never know. The more difficult the question, the less likely an ordinary medical student would be able to answer, let alone someone like me, who Feng Yueyao said only knew a bit. I didn't hesitate at all. In a calm tone, I answered everything clearly and systematically, from hemostasis techniques to suturing needle angles and then to postoperative care. Every detail was exact. I even specifically mentioned the specific locations of the 7 arrows on Chui Bin's body, as well as the emergency treatment methods for his excessive blood loss at that time. Those details that only the person who actually performed the rescue would know. I spoke clearly, word by word. The Madam Physician's expression became more and more serious. The hand holding her folding fan tightened slightly. Slowly, she stopped asking questions and just looked at me quietly, her eyes filled with shock and disbelief. Others didn't understand medicine, so naturally, they didn't understand the exchange between us. They only saw me looking relaxed, while the Madam Physician remained silent. The banquet hall suddenly fell silent, and the atmosphere became a bit strange. Chui Bin's face also became increasingly unsightly. He obviously recognized the details I mentioned. They were secrets that only the person who saved him would know. The princess looked at Feng Yueyao, her tone indifferent, heir's wife. Do you agree with your sister's answer? Chui Bin furrowed his brows. He already sensed that something was wrong in his heart, and he quickly signaled Feng Yueyao with his eyes to slow down her response, hoping to stabilize the situation. But Feng Yueyao had long since been blinded by her pride, and she didn't understand Chui Bin's hint at all. She couldn't wait to nod, saying proudly, "That's natural. The person I trained naturally won't be bad. Madam, you'd better admit defeat." The Madam Physician sighed lightly, slowly shaking her head, her tone carrying a hint of regret. Second Miss Fang's answer wasn't correct in a single word. It doesn't sound at all like someone who has studied medicine. It sounds like utter nonsense. That one sentence went straight to the point. The banquet hall instantly erupted, with whispers rising one after another. What? It was all wrong? Isn't the heir's wife a miraculous doctor? How could the person she trained be so incompetent? It seems the outside rumors are indeed false. Just now, the details the second miss spoke of sounded like someone who has actually saved a person. I lowered my head at the right time, curtsying with a look of panic. My tone was timid and innocent. This servant does not know medicine. Just now, I was indeed speaking nonsense. I hope all the ladies and misses will forgive me. After a pause, I looked up at the princess, my voice clearly reaching the entire banquet. This servant is also not the second miss of the Feng family. Master Feng is already well aware. This servant is a child he picked up from outside the family and has no blood relation to the Feng family at all. This servant dressed up today to rashly enter the princess's manor, thinking that with so many people here, perhaps I could find my biological parents. I begged the princess to grant my wish. Every word was sincere, and my eyes carried a bit of helplessness. It instantly won the sympathy of many ladies present. Feng Yueyao didn't believe my words at all. She thought I was intentionally betraying her. She stood up from her seat in a panic, rushed to my side, and raised her hand, wanting to slap me. She hissed shrilly, "You're lying. You are my sister. You did this on purpose. You want to ruin me." Before her hand could fall, it was firmly caught by Chui Bin. Chui Bin's face was as bad as it could get. Completely ashen. His eyes were filled with regret and anger. He began to regretting choosing Feng Yueyao by mistake, regretting giving up on me, the one who truly saved him, for her sake, and even more, regretting marrying Feng Yueyao into the Marquis's manor, making the manor the laughingstock of the entire capital. He thought that even if Feng Yueyao's medical skills were fake, they could fool people for a long time, at least not being exposed in public at such a grand occasion as the princess's manor. But he didn't expect Feng Yueyao to be so foolish, personally pushing herself into the abyss. The more Feng Yueyao spoke, the more she failed. The more she acted, the more she failed. She had long since thrown away the face of the Marquis's manor. Most people in the noble families were shrewd. By now, they already understood that Feng Yueyao was an absolute fraud. Those families that had once sent expensive and heavy gifts secretly hated the Marquis's manor for their deception. One by one, they looked on with unkind eyes, already starting to think about how to take revenge given the chance. Chui Bin didn't dare let Feng Yueyao speak anymore. He firmly gripped her waist and pressed her back into her seat, hissing in a low voice, "Don't talk. Pretend to faint." With Chui Bin's reminder, Feng Yueyao finally used her most skilled tactic. Her eyes closed, her body went limp, and she slumped onto the chair, pretending to have fainted. Seeing this, the princess curled her lips into a mocking smile, her tone light. "Oh, how did she faint?" Madam Physician, quickly take a look at her. We can't have a life lost at my banquet. The princess's status was more noble than the heir's. Chuibin didn't have time to think of a reason to refuse before the Madam Physician had already stepped forward and lightly placed her hand on Feng Yueyao's wrist. A moment later, the Madam Physician stood up and reported to the princess. The heir's wife has been pregnant for over 2 months. The pregnancy is unstable. She fainted just now because of extreme anger affecting her heart. It is nothing serious. The princess feigned surprise. Over 2 months? Then, truly, congratulations. Heir, quickly take the heir's wife back to rest. Carefully look after her. When the heir's wife wakes up, remember to have her think carefully about how the questions posed by the Madam Physician should actually be solved. Don't let others laugh at her anymore. The sarcasm in her tone was self-evident. Chuibin gritted his teeth, his expression unsightly to the extreme. He could only wretchedly pick up Feng Yueyao, hurriedly excuse himself to the princess, and turn to leave. Before leaving, he stared at me for a long time with an inscrutable expression. In his gaze was remorse, resentment, unwillingness, and a hint of concern that he himself hadn't even noticed. It wasn't until he was urged by a maid that he left, looking back every 3 steps, his silhouette lonely and miserable. The princess deliberately ignored me, and raised her hand to the crowd with a gentle smile. A little interlude shouldn't affect everyone's enjoyment. Bring out more tea and snacks. The banquet proceeded as usual, and the lively atmosphere was soon restored, but everyone's topic of conversation had turned to Feng Yueyao's fake miraculous doctor identity and the scandal of her premarital pregnancy. I stood in the corner, listening to those discussions, with a peaceful heart. This was just the beginning. What they owed me was still far from paid. I was led into a side courtyard by a female official of the princess's manor. The courtyard was extremely quiet, with several stalks of emerald bamboo planted. In the air, a faint medicinal fragrance floated. No matter how I pressed her, the female official remained silent with her head bowed, simply guarding the door and not letting me leave. I felt suspicious in my heart, so I simply stopped asking and lightly pushed open the door to the room. The light in the room was soft, permeated with a thick medicinal smell and a faint scent of blood. A man was lying on the bed, dressed in a black brocade robe, his face pale yet full of noble bearing. Hearing the movement, the man looked up, his gaze deep, and carrying a bit of gentleness. I walked forward, my eyes instantly widening as I froze in place. It was that man I had saved in the forest some time ago. His upper body was bare, and on the gauze on his chest, fresh blood was seeping through. It was obvious that the wound had reopened. Suddenly, a figure appeared from the shadows and knelt on the ground, his voice respectful. His Highness's injury had originally stabilized, but a few days ago, His Highness rashly used martial arts, causing the wound to reopen. We asked the young lady to treat His Highness. I looked back, and instantly recognized the person speaking as the head of the Imperial Hospital. It was precisely the same Imperial physician who was ordered to have me treat a noble person in my previous life. I pinched the corner of my clothes, smiling bitterly in my heart. Fate truly works in strange ways. I actually encountered such a small coincidence. I had been hoping day and night for the royal family to ask Feng Yueyao to treat a noble person, hoping her failure to treat them would implicate the Marquis's manor, ideally having her and Chuibin convicted together. I didn't expect that I would be the one to intercept it. I personally saved the person I couldn't save in my previous life. This life, I saved him instead. It was truly ridiculous. I didn't know who to hate. Tears quickly fell down my face, the tears hitting my lapel, leaving a damp stain. I remembered in my previous life, I had tried my best to save this noble person. But because my hands were injured from being beaten by my parents, I was mocked by the Imperial physicians for being delusional and ultimately met a tragic end. In this life, I clearly only wanted to watch from the sidelines, yet I was still pushed to the forefront by fate. Gu Yuanrui looked at me helplessly, wanting to raise his hand to comfort me, but as soon as he raised it, it affected his wound. His brow furrowed slightly, and more blood seeped out. I quickly wiped away my tears, stepped forward quickly, and gently unwrapped the gauze on him. Looking at his gruesome wound, I said softly, "Fine, I'll save you properly to the end. I'll just consider it my destiny to have failed my calculations." Fortunately, Feng Yueyao was also completely defeated today. Her outcome won't be very good, which can be considered not a waste of my efforts. My mood settled a bit. I looked up at Gu Yuanrui, my tone carrying a bit of resentment. "Can you return the medical tools that you swiped from me? Those are the tools I use to make a living." Gu Yuanrui nodded gently, a hint of a smile appearing in his eyes. A servant immediately walked in carrying a tray in both hands. Inside, all of my missing medical tools were placed in a neat row, wiped perfectly clean. Even the small scalpel I frequently used was maintained until it was shining. I hesitated for a moment, and didn't avoid the head of the Imperial Hospital, letting him stand aside to learn through the whole process, casually answering questions as I treated the wound. My medical skills were passed down from my master, and they were completely different from current medical practices. They were bold and precise. The Imperial physician became more shocked as he listened, and the gaze he directed at me was full of admiration. He even took out paper and a brush to silently record every key point I mentioned. Only then did I learn that the person I had saved was the second prince, Gu Yuanrui. He was the emperor's most beloved prince, the queen's disciple. and his status was incomparably noble. Later, a secret guard quietly informed the emperor. They took my birth dates to the national master to decipher, wanting to see if I could form a marriage bond with Gu Yuanrui. Hearing this, I felt deeply uneasy and couldn't help but curse the national master in my heart. Whether his calculations were accurate or not, I didn't know, but his so-called destined bond had already made me miserable in my previous life. In this life, I would never let destiny manipulate me again. Gu Yuanrui didn't tell me how the national master had deciphered the characters. He just looked at me, his gaze serious. I will grant you a bright future. I will grant you a free future where no one can bully you again. Everything at the princess's manor today was arranged by me. The people who stole your identity and bullied you will be punished. My heart jolted. It turned out that from beginning to end, all of this was within his control. On the day I met Gu Yuanrui, secret guards were already following him. When I was treating him in the cave, my bold treatment methods had several times made the secret guards want to kill me. If Gu Yuanrui hadn't stopped them in time, I would have already lost my life. After Gu Yuanrui woke up and heard the secret guards describe my appearance and medical skills, and then thought of the rumors of Feng Yueyao, the miraculous doctor, circulating in Jingzhou, he instantly saw through the Feng family's plans and Cui Bin's choice to go along with the mistake. Originally, Gu Yuanrui's injury had already improved, but an assassin suddenly appeared in the palace, targeting him. He had rashly used martial arts to protect the emperor, causing the wound to worsen again. Even if I hadn't come to the princess's manor, his people would have already tracked me down to bring me back to the capital for treatment. Knowing that I wanted to go to the princess's manor to watch the show, he had specifically arranged all of this. It both helped me expose Feng Yueyao's true face and logically allowed me to treat him. Second, Miss Feng, this is my sincerity. Gu Yuanrui looked at me, his eyes holding a hint of a different kind of affection, gentle and sincere. I was no longer willing to take risks. After experiencing the betrayal and suffering of my previous life, my heart had long since become like cold ashes regarding matters of love. I only wanted to live a peaceful life guarding my medical skills. I pretended not to understand his affection and lowered my head to focus on treating the wound without saying another word. When I had completely healed Gu Yuanrui's injury, I immediately requested to leave. Gu Yuanrui didn't stop me. He only sent people to protect me in secret and gave me a token that allowed me to freely enter and exit the prince's manor, telling me I could come at any time to study medicine. The excitement of the princess's manor was quickly spread with embellishments. By the time I heard the rumors on the streets, the story had long since changed. Everyone was saying that Cui Bin and Feng Yueyao had already conceived a child in secret, and in order to be together, Cui Bin feigned injury and intentionally fabricated Feng Yueyao's identity as a miraculous doctor to deceive everyone in the capital. Even the once honest marquis was said to be an accomplice. The reputation of the marquis's manor plummeted in an instant, becoming the laughingstock of the entire capital. Even walking on the street, they were pointed at by others. I heard that after the marquis learned the truth, he flew into a rage, personally punishing Cui Bin, beating him until he could hardly stand, and locking him in the manor to reflect in seclusion. In the ancestral hall of the marquis's manor, the marquis knelt for a long time before the ancestral tablets, regretting his poor judgment of character, which had ruined the century-old reputation of the marquis's manor. I heard that Feng Yueyao was never invited to any banquets by noble or aristocratic families again. The people who used to flatter her all avoided her like the plague, and she became like a street rat that everyone shouted at. She wanted to go out to clear her head, but she was driven away by the common people on the roadside. She could only hide in the courtyard of the marquis's manor all day, washing her face with tears. I heard my father, the sixth-rank official, who had failed to teach his daughter and deceived the marquis's manor and the royal family, was convicted by the emperor. He was directly expelled from the capital and exiled to a remote area, never to return to the capital. The Feng family's estate was confiscated, and their former prosperity vanished overnight. On the day my parents left the capital, I personally went to see them off. Gu Yuanrui, worried about me, insisted on accompanying me. At the post station, my parents looked haggard, their faces worn out, no longer possessing any of their former glory. Their only luggage was a worn-out bundle containing a few changes of clothes. There was not a single trace left of their former appearance as a noble household. Seeing Gu Yuanrui, who was noble and extraordinary, by my side, their eyes instantly lit up. Thinking that I had become one of Gu Yuanrui's people, they hurriedly knelt on the ground and kept kowtowing to me, howling and admitting their mistakes. My good daughter, father and mother were wrong. You are father and mother's biological daughter. We beg you to save us. Don't let us go to that remote place. You are flesh that fell from my body. Mother's denial of your identity back then was out of necessity. Mother thought your sister was beautiful and could capture the heart of the marquis's heir. Once she had secured her position in the marquis's manor, she could lead our family to enjoy prosperity and then find a good husband for you. Yes, father and mother never thought about not wanting you. After you left, father and mother cried for several days. We've been sending people to look for you all along. They cried until their voices were hoarse, appearing sincere, but I felt no waves in my heart. Look for me? On the streets. I had never seen a single portrait searching for me. Not a single person had ever come to look for me. From childhood to adulthood, everything I ate, wore, and used was the leftovers my sister didn't want. In their eyes, there was only ever Feng Yueyao, never me, their second daughter. When I was 6 years old, I got a scar trying to save Feng Yueyao, but they never felt sorry for me once. I studied medicine day and night, but they never gave me a direct look. Until that day, when in order to protect Feng Yueyao, they personally denied my identity, calling me worthless. I had long since severed my last trace of longing for them. I took out 300 taels from my sleeve and lightly placed it in front of them. My tone was calm and emotionless. Although I have not found my biological parents, I dare not forget the kindness you showed in raising me. This silver is my thank you to both of you. Now, I am the second prince's physician. My medical skills are too advanced. Without protection, my life would be in danger. With the second prince as my backer, I can freely study medical skills and save the people I can save, rather than being an exclusive physician for high officials. Mother looked at the 300 taels of silver, then looked at Gu Yuanrui beside me, crying even more miserably. She firmly grabbed the corner of my clothes, refusing to let go. Daughter, mother's biological daughter, please forgive us. We won't ever do it again. I gently pulled back my clothes, took a step back, and curtsied. The silver has been given, and the debt of raising me has been repaid. We shall not meet again in this life. No matter how they cried, or how they begged, I just smiled and waved. I personally watched the escorts drag them onto the carriage, moving further and further away, until they disappeared from my sight. There was no reluctance in my heart, only a complete sense of relief. Gu Yuanrui stood beside me, and lightly patted my shoulder, comforting me silently. Not long after, war broke out again on the border. The fires of war were everywhere, and the common people were displaced. Gu Yuanrui took the initiative to request the emperor's permission to lead the troops into battle. He specifically came to find me, his tone sincere. Qinglan, come with me to the border. There will be many wounded soldiers in the army for you to practice on, and improve your medical skills. The army doesn't care about etiquette or rules. As long as they survive, it's enough. It's perfect for you. I was moved by his words. The grudges in the capital were settled, and I wanted to find a place to focus on my medical studies, save more innocent people, and fulfill my master's last wish. Though the winds and sands at the border are harsh, they allow me to stay away from the capital's troubles, and truly live for myself. Coincidentally, Chuibin was also in the expeditionary force. He already held a position in the army. This time he went to war, hoping to use his military merit to obtain an imperial decree for our marriage. He thought that as long as Feng Yueyao was gone, I would return to his side. But he didn't know I had long since hated him to the bone. As for Feng Yueyao's child, it was never successfully born after all. She had a fiery temper, and couldn't withstand the ridicule and neglect of the world. The more glorious she was in the past, the harder she fell later. During a small banquet in the palace, she got into an argument with someone. In the scuffle, she accidentally hit a lampstand, and her skirt was instantly set on fire. Everyone panicked, but no one stepped forward to rescue her immediately. Chuibin was nearby, but he deliberately delayed, watching her be swallowed by the flames. He even secretly ordered the servants not to rush to her aid, claiming he was afraid of disturbing the pregnancy. But in reality, he was already tired of Feng Yueyao and wanted to use the fire to get rid of the woman who brought shame to the Marquis' manor. Ultimately, because help didn't arrive in time, Feng Yueyao met with disaster. The way she died was exactly like mine in my previous life. Her dying wails echoed throughout the Marquis' manor, but not a single person shed a sincere tear for her. After Feng Yueyao died, Chuibin ran to me excitedly, like a child who had been set free. His tone was manic. I'm free now. Feng Yueyao is gone. She met with disaster, but this time I won't target you. I will protect you. Can we start over? I ignored his madness, turned around, and boarded the carriage to the border. Along the way, no matter how Chuibin came to confess his love or pretend deep affection, I stayed hidden in the carriage and didn't pay him any mind. Gu Yuanrui sat beside me, watching Chuibin follow persistently outside the window. His tone sour. Aren't you moved? I thought you used to like him. I shook my head gently, my eyes clear. What is there to like? Mistaking rotten wood for a pearl, or his heartless treatment of his wife? Chuibin thought I didn't know. Feng Yueyao could have been saved, but he deliberately delayed, which led to her death. His so-called love was ultimately nothing more than mutual calculation. Neither of them was a good person. Watching them turn against each other, I only felt incredibly relieved. So-called love is always fragile in the face of life, death, and interest. The battlefield was cruel. Swords and spears have no eyes. Smoke was everywhere, and severed limbs were scattered about. The sound of wailing was incessant. There were no intrigues of the capital here, but there was the most direct test of life and death. I set up a temporary medical tent in the army, and with a few soldiers learning medicine, I constantly treated the wounded. The medical skills my master taught me finally had a purpose. Before long, Chuibin was seriously injured again. His chest was pierced by a spear. His breath was faint, just like when I saved him on the mountain. All those years ago, in his rush to claim military merit, he recklessly charged into the enemy ranks and finally ended up like this. He truly brought it upon himself. He sent Qing Wei to find me and kneel, pleading before me to save Cui Bin. Qing Wei cowed out until his head bled, crying out, "Miss Feng, I beg you, please save the heir. He knows he was wrong. He has been regretting it all along." But at that moment, I was busy treating a severely wounded soldier who was only 15. His parents had both died in the war, leaving him all alone. If I didn't treat him in time, he would die on the spot. In the face of life, there is no distinction between high and low. I couldn't abandon this innocent youth to save Cui Bin. Without looking up, I said to Qing Wei, "I can't save him. Go find someone else." Qing Wei wanted to plead more, but was pulled out by Gu Yuanrui's men. Gu Yuanrui walked to my side and handed me a bowl of warm water. "Don't be conflicted, you did the right thing." By the time I had completely treated the young soldier and turned back to this matter, when I finally rushed over, the best time for treatment had already passed. I am not a true immortal. I don't have the art of bringing the dead back to life. Cui Bin lay in the tent, his face as pale as paper, his breath weak, knowing his end had come. He suddenly smiled. His laughter was desolate and relieved. The master was right. I won't live past 20. In 2 lifetimes, I couldn't live past 20. It is heaven's will, and ultimately, it's what I deserve. I understood what Cui Bin meant. He also carried memories of the previous life. Unfortunately, I died too early in my previous life to know what his final end was. Now, there's no need to ask. He looked at me, his eyes full of regret and apology, using his last ounce of strength. He only said the most useless phrase, "I'm sorry." Then he breathed his last, and never opened his eyes again. I stood in the tent, looking at his cold corpse. Without even shedding a single tear, I turned and left expressionlessly, immediately throwing myself into treating the next wave of wounded. Wasting time on sentimentality is the most redundant emotion here. Partings by death are played out every day. All I can do is hold the knife in my hand tightly and save as many as I can. Sunlight pierced through the gaps in the tent, spilling over me, warm and bright. Having lived another life, I have finally escaped the hatred and shackles of the past. No longer trapped by love, no longer hurt by family. I have medical skills in my hands, Gu Yuanrui by my side, and a future of freedom. For the rest of my life, I will only be Feng Qinglan, the physician who saves lives. I don't live for anyone else. I only live for myself. Those who owed me and those who hurt me have all finally received their due retribution. And I will finally, in this mundane world, live the way I've always wanted.